Hello and welcome to the Tuesday night music show, where sometimes we actually talk about music.
Sometimes
we do. And of course, this week, as always, we have our superstar, rock star, engineer, producer, Howie Darkstar, with a big old smile on his face.
Hello, everybody.
He's a happy guy tonight. How you doing, Howie?
I'm doing good. Had a breakthrough.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, Howie.
I said I had a breakthrough today.
What was your breakthrough?
I found another Easter egg in the lighting program.
Well, that's really boring. This is a music show. We're not going to talk about that. I'm just kidding you. Please share that with us in the third part of the show.
We're in the third part, maybe.
We're going to do a couple parts.
If we have time.
I'd ask Jay how he's doing, but he's over there coughing and hacking and vaping and having a hard time. So we know he's done.
I need some Sprite.
There you go.
That's not Sprite. Oh, all right.
I've been trying to figure out how to word this to not trigger Jay.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
But tonight, I want to do some freestyle.
Yeah. I guessed it.
All right.
Yeah, I triggered him.
Welcome to an hour of George Lamond.
I knew he was. I wanted to somehow write down George Lamond somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I knew this is what he would say. But I'm not talking freestyle music.
Oh.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about kind of a freestyle type of show for the first, I don't know, let's do the first half hour and see how it goes, and we'll move on from there. What I was thinking about doing, I thought it might be kind of fun. I want to talk about some artists that we love.
Okay.
I want to talk about a group, a writer, a singer, somebody that you think is great. And I thought it would be interesting if Howie would keep this time to like maybe about 5 minutes an artist. We have a discussion about it.
Okay.
Now, Jay, you're going to time him to 2 minutes before he takes a breath.
Right.
Because we need to have a conversation about this.
Who was that guy we used to do the show with that used to do that a couple of years back? Remember that guy we had? The dude in the Midwest somewhere or the North
Young something or other?
I can't remember now. He was like in a fish. He was in an ice fishing house, I think.
Some young guy.
Some young guy. Yeah. Oh, that's right. No, it was like number 7 on the menu. Some young guy or something.
Yeah. Some young guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was a different menu. $20 is $20.
I know that Jay is going to be able to pull this just right off the hat. An artist that he loves, being a band, a musician, a singer, a producer, a writer, somebody. I'm going to let Jay go first.
Okay. I am going to go with what I like to call the desert island artist.
Yeah.
My desert island artist would have to be Aerosmith.
Okay.
Beginning to end catalog. Like most of us, as we get older, we lose sight of certain periods of music. And there's a point where you kind of go, you make what I call the turn. And the turn is, man, I can't wait for the new album. I can't wait for the new album. And then you suddenly find yourself going back to the old albums.
Mm-hmm.
But there's enough of a catalog from the early 70s to 2000.
Yeah.
And even beyond a little bit where I'm
a little bit.
Yeah. I find it's the band that ends up on my radar on a weekly basis. At some point, I suddenly go, man, I haven't heard Lord of the Thighs in forever. Play it. Or I haven't heard this in forever. I'll play it. So they by far would be one of the first bands I really got into. Certainly guitar-wise, Joe Perry was a god to me. I've seen recent video, and I think they still perform at a good level. But, and I hate saying this because I'm older and you're older and we're all older, there is that point where it's not what it was, you know? And it's hard, I think, for older fans sometimes because you have to dismiss that a little bit, you know? Yeah, I look at Angus, for example. I saw them in 80 on the Back in Black tour. I then saw them on For Those About to Rock tour a year or two later. And then I saw them in like 2000. And they still sounded great and they did an amazing job, but they didn't move with quite as much speed.
Let me ask you this. If you can think about it, because I have the song in my head. What was the last great Aerosmith song? Or well, not like epic, but the one you like, the last original Aerosmith song that came out. You thought this is a good tune. What was it?
Jaded.
For me, it was Pink.
For
I thought
me,
Pink was a good song.
Pink is a
Jamie's
really
Got
good song.
Okay.
For
Yeah.
me, Jamie Got a Gun. I mean, it was just like a whole story, man. I mean, my imagination went, whoa.
Yeah. That 80s period, for me, Permanent Vacation and Get a Grip, that, and Pump, there was a lot of great music coming out of all of those albums. I mean, Permanent Vacation, everyone runs to Ragdoll.
Yeah.
Or Dude Looks Like a Lady. For me, it was Hangman's Jury. That to me was just like, whoa, what, you're driving and you hear the crickets and the rocking chair and then the acoustic guitar kind of Bayou style. And I just remember being like shivers. But I think for me personally, the last track that I can point to and say that was a really good song was Jaded. And I think Jaded
What year
came
was that?
up.
Yeah.
It was 90s.
Sure. Early 90s.
Yeah, because I saw them, the last tour I saw them on was Push Play. And that was 2000. And they were supporting the Play album.
Okay.
It was Pink with a girl on it.
What year did Pink come out? Was that like 98 or 99?
Man, to be honest, I sadly can't tell you either track when they came out. They're both 90s songs.
It's a late 90s song, and the reason I know
Yeah.
is because I started subscribing to promo only in November 97, and it was on something promo only. So I don't know if it was 98, 99, but I distinctly remember it on one of those discs. But I thought it was a good tune, like a genuinely good song.
I think it's a good song too.
And after that, I can't remember any other Aerosmith hits.
Yeah, that's kind of the period that kind of left us a little bit. I'm sure Howie's doing the same thing I'm doing. And 1996 was Pink.
Yes. Yeah, 96. Yeah.
And I think Jaded may have been right before then. I think Jaded might be the same album. But like I said earlier about as you get older and bands start to
my what do they call that, hot hits, then it must have been on my hot hits, because I remember it coming out on a promo thing.
Yeah, Jaded came out in 2001
on
the Just Push Play.
Okay, so Pink's older.
Yeah, 96.
Wow.
I mean, I can attest that every song on the first album Aerosmith, the second album Get Your Wings, the third album Toys in the Attic, the fourth album Rocks, the fifth album, Draw the Line. Draw the Line was a little sketchy because of the drug use. Night in the Ruts, I love. And it was a departure album where Joe Perry left the band, and a lot of people got kind of freaked out. Somewhere in between, I think right before Night in the Ruts was Live Bootleg, which had no new material. Then after that, there was that breakdown period, and I think the next one they did was either Done with Mirrors or... No, I think Done with Mirrors came next. Then Rockin' a Hard Place. And then that 80s new band came back with Permanent Vacation.
This reminds me of that scene of Forrest Gump where he's talking about Bubba Gump shrimp and he's talking about all the different ways you can make shrimp.
Yeah.
That's what your monologue just reminded me of. It was pretty... No, but yeah, Aerosmith's a good band.
I got no complaints.
We've talked about Aerosmith a lot in our broadcast because you've brought up Aerosmith a lot.
Yeah.
But
I love their music. It is music that I can hear a song, and we've had this talk a million times. One of the greatest joys of music for me is I can hear it and I'm brought back to memories. You know, when I hear Bridge Over Troubled Water, I remember hearing it on vinyl on Hoyt Road in the first house I grew up in till I was 11. And it was my mom's album. And I remember the cover of it. And I remember hearing it. And I remember playing it on vinyl because that's what you played. And, you know, that's a joy that very few things in life can bring you.
Well, what I was going to say is that what we've never discussed about Aerosmith is how they made their comeback in the mid 90s, because they went away for a second.
They did.
Came back. And Jay, you want to go ahead and tell us the story of what brought them back?
Well, again, drug abuse and alcohol and everything else kind of splintered the group. And in the late 70s, Joe Perry was initially the first to leave the original lineup of Aerosmith and started the Joe Perry Project, which I've seen in concert around Boston, I think 8 times. He was then followed by Brad Whitford, who left the group and started Whitford St. Holmes with the former lead singer from Ted Nugent's organization, Derek St. Holmes. So they had Whitford St. Holmes was the band that they started. Aerosmith then went on with Jimmy Crespo on guitar and Rick Dufay. And this again would be in the early 80s. I saw them in 1983 at the Providence Civic Center with Rick Dufay and Jimmy Crespo, and it really wasn't quite the same.
Well, what brought them back?
What brought them back was rehab.
No.
But
Should
I believe
just do this. I can do this.
John Kolodner and Geffen.
Stop. Let me do this. Let me help.
Yeah, we're going on 10 minutes now.
Run DMC.
Right,
Yes.
but
Run
they'd
DMC.
already rejoined. They weren't broken when that happened.
But they were back on MTV in the public eye.
Oh,
anyway.
yeah. Oh, you're talking that. Okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
So-
I thought you meant as a group individually.
No, what I'm
you're
talking
talking
about
what... Okay, you're right.
What alluded up to Dude Looks Like a Lady, and I'll make this brief, was that Run DMC, the hip hop samples rock, and the Beastie Boys were doing Zeppelin and all kinds of stuff, and Black Sabbath. Run DMC decided to do Aerosmith, and they actually partnered with them. And I don't want to call it a duet, but it was a
collab.
The collaboration. There you go. They teamed up and did Walk This Way together, part rap, part rock.
Yeah.
And Aerosmith completely redid Walk This Way, and it was a big MTV video, and all of a sudden Aerosmith was on everybody's radar again.
Yeah.
I think that video, when they're listening and then they bust through the wall,
right?
It gave white suburban American kids the right to say, hey, it's okay to like rock and urban music as well.
And that
okay
metaphor was
like
pretty
all
strong.
kinds of music.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the video, they're annoyed with each other, very much so.
Yeah.
But then by the end of the video, they're friends, on stage. So
yeah.
Well, and it's
wonderful.
You see the interviews with Run DMC, and they're like, we didn't know what all this stuff was. Like Jay used to just do the drop in the beginning, so he did the dun dun dun, 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 and scratch it. But they didn't get into the track, and I kind of still to this day find it hard to believe. But the internet has ruined me for understanding that there was a point where you could exist and not know certain songs.
Yeah.
Everything is thrown at us so quickly now, and music is such a big thread.
So the moral here, before we move on to Howie with his artist, is that you can thank a DJ for bringing Aerosmith back in the 80s into the
I'd say so. Yeah, 100%. And a DJ who left us way too soon, Jam Master Jay.
Right. And Steven Tyler has famously thanked him.
Oh, yeah.
Doing what he did. So there's a lot of respect there. So sorry we went over, Howie. It's your turn. I want you to bring up an artist, an act, a writer, a singer, somebody who you really dig. Let's talk about them. Who are they?
John Caffey and Eva Brown Band.
I am going to go with the keeper of the flame for
I know who he's going to say.
Dave Grohl.
Nice.
I didn't know who you were going to say.
Nice.
Dave Grohl, I did watch that documentary, Sound City, and
what Jay was talking about.
He had Barry Manilow in there. He had Paul McCartney in there. He had the guys from just about anybody you can think of. And I think back to that comment that you made, Brian. It's like, well, wait a minute. If you say you like all kinds of music, but you don't like all kinds of music. And
that was Jay who said that. That wasn't me.
Oh, now here, after watching that documentary, it's like, here's a guy that likes all kinds of music. So much so that he bought that Nev console from Sound City and put it in his studio, which is 606. I guess is that the area code or something? I don't know, but
I don't know what significance that has, because that's not the area code for where
Might
he
be the
lives.
dress.
yeah. But the thing is, though, he really does love. Look at they're doing the DGs as well. I mean,
Right.
he's embracing all genres of music, and
Yeah.
he is the new keeper of the flame, because a lot of these guys are gone, like Tom Petty that was in there. He's gone. Several others as well.
Johnny Cash.
So it's kind of like, yeah, Johnny Cash was in there. I mean, he would play with anyone, and he invited them into the board that they made their classic albums on to, have a little reunion thing and make some tunes. And I just have to admire him. It's like one of my new favorites for being the keeper of the flame.
Like the biggest mistake that guy made, and I think he knows it and he openly admits it, was calling his band the Foo Fighters. It's a bad
But
name.
they've been fighting Foo since '92.
They've been fighting Foo for a long time. He just didn't think the band would last that long. It was a project he didn't care. And in my world, I remember hearing the song. I don't even know what it's called, but I hear it in my head. And the video was like the spoof of the Mentos commercial.
Big Easy, I think.
Right.
Big Easy, I believe.
And then they were like off my radar. Like I knew they existed, but that wasn't playing on the radio stations that I was listening to. Anyway.
Well, my favorite song from them would be Times Like These.
Love that. Love.
We learn to love again.
Yeah.
We need that now.
Yeah, we do.
I guess Dave Grohl popped back on my radar maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And yeah, what a cool guy. I mean, I like him. I really like
you would
Dave
like
Grohl.
him as a person, because
Right.
he has all the money in the world, and he does just like you and I. He drives an old beat up vehicle, but he buys the best gear that he can afford,
Right.
for music. He doesn't spend money on clothes and jewelry and cars. That van had to be an 80s van. Don't you think, Jay?
Yeah.
That he was driving?
I think it's like early 70s, late 60s. That
really?
like the white Ecoline weird looking thing.
Yeah, weird.
By the way, real quick, this tour they're on, the arrangement is when Foo Fighters went on their very first tour in like 95, Dave Grohl had the money, the band didn't. So he bought a van. He bought a big Dodge red Ram van. And he kept it. So the deal was, on this new tour, that's how the band is traveling. They're in the van. The same way they said, let's make an album on tape without Pro Tools. He said, on this anniversary, we decided we wanted to tour again in the van and be a band in a van and have to live with it. Forget the flights, forget the planes, forget the cool buses. Let's get back to down and dirty. I think he by far shows more respect to other artists. He had a project called Probot, where he brought in people like Lemmy from Motorhead and Kronos from Venom, like people he loved coming up. He brought them in to make an album because he's like, they're not getting the press they need. They're not getting the coverage they need. They toured with Bob Dylan, and Bob Dylan said, I love that song about got to stop, don't say stop when I say when. And Dave Grohl famously tells the story being freaked out like, wait, Bob Dylan likes a lyric I wrote? And Bob Dylan Dave Grohl was a punk fan and the drummer in Nirvana.
I was going to say, if
loves
you took a
music.
Sharpie and you drew a beard on the drummer of Nirvana, he looks just like Dave Grohl. It's weird. It's like
exactly
it's uncanny.
But that's the thing. We're very much like Dave Grohl. We can talk about, yacht rock one night and Prince one night and this and this and this. And by the way, as you know, Brian, and I hate hijacking, but I'm so excited about the fact that you picked Dave Grohl. When Prince played the Super Bowl, he did a Foo Fighters song in his medley.
Yeah, he did.
He did.
And Foo Fighters did Darling Nikki.
And
Yes.
I think their version is great.
Yeah.
I think they did a really good version.
They actually played it at the Prince tribute concert after he passed away. We were up there and they did it.
Well,
They're
yeah,
the guys that you could call up and say, we're doing a keg party and it's to help a local musician who's got
Here
leukemia.
we go. Yeah.
And they'd show up.
Yeah.
Oh, they would do it. And they do keg stands too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they would be in the room. I guarantee their rider doesn't call for Ace of Spades champagne and
Right.
Evian water. They're like, just some like a little sandwich thing and maybe some beer and some Jaeger and we're good.
I like what Howie said though initially, the keeper of the flame.
Yeah, I 100% agree with him.
I think he's really nailed it with that because
He loves music.
Yeah, he does. It's just-
We need more of
But
that.
he's preserving the history not only of the music but the artists. I mean, these folks are pretty much retired, and he's bringing them back in front of people. That's amazing. And then to save that piece of history, that Nev board, that's a one of a kind. That was $75,000 in 1970.
Yeah.
it's like
And you look at the
houses.
number of albums that
LA.
went platinum off
Right.
that board.
Off
It
that
was
board.
everyone. And like you
Everybody.
say, Howie, if you haven't seen Sound City, the documentary on YouTube,
You have to.
please, I implore you to watch it. To hear Stevie Nicks talk about while her hand goes over the board, it brought me chills.
It
Brought
did.
me chills. Just
Yeah.
if you think you love music, watch this because it's a love story of a man and music, and it should be the story of your life if you love music.
All right. I guess you're up, Brian.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Brian, it's 8:00. We got to go. now.
Any predictions of who I'm going to mention?
I
Man,
don't think you're going to go
I
with
can't.
Prince.
I think he's going to sidetrack us. I think he's going to go like George Michael or something.
going to throw
and-
us a curve.
yeah, he doesn't want to stay in his lane the way he should. But
No, I stay in my lane.
I'd love it if he said Motorhead. I'm done. I'm done if he says something like that.
I made a comment at the very end of our broadcast last week where Jay was going on about the old days and these damn kids today and all this stuff. And I had said, hey, I'm tired of judging art. I can't get mad at Picasso because he's no Rembrandt. And I can't get mad at Rembrandt because he's no Michelangelo.
Right.
Can't do that. That's no way to live. That's no way to enjoy art.
Right.
But it also got me thinking about everyone we've lost. And
Right.
I thought, wow, who's still around? Who's awesome? And I thought of somebody, and there's several actually, but one in particular. I mean, we just lost Charlie last week, but Jeff Lynne, he's still here, and he's
Yes.
still doing music,
Absolutely.
and he's amazing at what he does. Jeff
Sounds
Lynne
great.
is basically he is ELO. I mean, for all practical purposes,
Right.
very modest guy. He wouldn't tell you that, but I'm going to tell you that.
And he's the last of the traveling Wilburys, too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, was Dylan with them?
No,
Oh, wait,
Dylan's
no.
around yet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dylan's
we
around.
got Dylan.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
still
Roy
alive.
Orbison and Tom Petty are gone.
and George Harrison.
Yeah,
And George
breaking-
Harrison, yeah.
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 Well, what's interesting about and I brought this up to Jay. I don't know when it was. It was sometime during our conversations in the last year where I'd heard it one time. I don't remember where I heard it. That initially, when Jeff Lynne started doing music, that his goal or his mission was to pick up where the Beatles left off. And since I've said that, Jay has told me now I can't unhear Beatles influence in early ELO stuff.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
To me, everything sounds like I Am a Walrus. It's just
Did he not work? Correct. I could very well be wrong, but I seem to think Jeff Lynne at one point worked at Apple Studios.
I don't know. Well, I don't know if he worked there, but he was there during the recording of the White Album.
Yes.
Okay.
That's where
maybe that's where I'm coming up with that.
I don't know if he was working there or what, but he was there. He says it wasn't supposed to be there, and he was watching George Martin conduct strings for it, and then I think he said Paul and Ringo were in a studio, and George and John came up to him and was like, well, who are you? What are you doing here? And he met him and they talked a little bit. And that's the first time he'd met George Harrison. And the next time he met George Harrison was right before he produced the Cloud 9 album in like 1987. But he had met him before. He had met him.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, side note, he used to live out here, like here.
He still does, doesn't he?
I'm told he's now back in LA, but
LA.
Somebody had said, I saw some guy that you're a DJ, you might be into music stuff. I'm like, yeah. He's like, one of the guys lives over here in Duluth. I'm like, what? I think his name's Jeff Lynn. I'm like, Jeff Lynn of ELO, like Traveling Wilburys, like the Jeff Lynn. He's like, got curly black hair, always has sunglasses on. I'm like, holy shit, like where?
Yeah.
Oh, he's just,
Just to backtrack for a second, somebody actually said, oh, you're a DJ, you must be into music. That really happened?
Yeah.
That's a thing.
Yeah, but like into older music, because I think people think when like DJ, you're like the club kid thing.
Oh, okay.
Like, there's a guy that's like that we talked to one time. He's like older music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was actually going down a Jeff Lynne rabbit hole today, and I was listening to some interviews that he did. And recently he did one, and he was talking to some British radio host. And he was asking about, how did you and Tom Petty meet? And he said, well, I was driving down the road and some guy started honking his horn at me. And I looked and the guy rolled his window down. And I'm like, well, that's Tom Petty. And Tom Petty's like, pull over. So I pulled over and we met at the side of the road. And he said, I heard what you did with George Harrison's album. I'd love to work with you sometime. He said, okay, cool. Yeah, let's do it. That's how they met. Just driving down the road in LA somewhere.
That's cool.
I think that era is gone. And I think it's Dave Grohl is the new version and Jeff Lynne is the old version. I got to see Tom Petty the week before he died. And the command of stage and the song catalog and that, we go back to that period and you just think, ELO to me is stuff I heard when I was in middle school. And I mean, now I'm in my mid 30s. So, it wasn't that long ago, I guess.
Right.
But the catalog is so extensive. And I mean, I've got friends that are my age that I grew up with that are like, oh, dude, have you heard the new ELO? I'm like, actually, no, I haven't. Oh, I saw him like a couple years ago. My friend Mark Rubin, dentist. We knew each other. We've known each other since we were 15. He's like, oh, I saw him in Boston. Then I saw him in Philly and New York. I'm like, seriously? I didn't think you were that into ELO. He's like, the show was so amazing. I had to go to two more.
Have you seen it?
That's the thing. I've never seen them live.
Well, okay. It's on Showtime. It's called Wembley or Bust.
Oh, no, I have seen that. But I haven't seen them in person. Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah, that's the best live performance I've ever seen.
Oh, it was amazing. No, I've seen that. I've seen that.
Agree.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing.
And I'm talking, visually it was very good. And I could argue whether or not it was the best visual performance. It was damn good, Wembley Stadium. But as far as somebody going out there and just literally doing all of their big tracks with some surprises that were pleasant.
Yeah.
And sounding exactly like the studio recording.
Yeah.
Was incredible. Not only that, but consider some of this stuff is damn near 50 years old.
Yeah.
This guy is in his early.
He's got to be in his 70s.
No, he's mid 70s. He's in his mid 70s.
All day.
Early to mid 70s. And he can still go out there. He sounds exactly like he did on Telephone Line. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
He can hit the notes. He doesn't look much different. Of course, beard, curly hair, glasses. How much different can you look? It's kind of like putting on a Groucho mustache and, glasses.
But how many guys even keep that look? The only one I can think of, and it should be a trivia thing, has anyone ever seen the eyes of Eric Bloom, the guitar singer from Blue Oyster Cult? Because I think the answer would be no. I've never seen him out of sunglasses. I don't think I've ever seen Jeff Lynne out of sunglasses.
I have.
You have? Oh, there are photos of this.
He started wearing the sunglasses probably in the 80s. And it's probably the same thing with me. He's got these bags under his eyes. I put sunglasses on, I look a little younger. And I think, Jeff was kind of going for that same thing. But no, I just, love ELO, love Jeff Lynne. Just the arrangements that he did with his own music. I just I discovered a lot of things today I didn't know about him. He co-wrote "You Got It" with Roy Orbison. That was
Did he really?
Yes.
Wow.
He
I didn't know
produced
that.
it, yeah, they wrote it together. He said he went out to Nashville just to meet him one time, and they were going to try to work together, but nothing happened. He spent a few days get to know him, whatever. He came home and he did some stuff with George Harrison. He was starting to work with Tom Petty, and Roy called him out of the blue and said, "Hey, I'm in LA and I want to work." And so they said, "All right." So they got together and they wrote the song, and he mixed it, and he got it and he nailed it and he played it back and said Roy didn't say anything. And I'm like, oh no, I blew it. This guy's like my hero. This was the first guy I was listening to. It. So I listened to nothing but Roy Orbison, before the Beatles. That's what I listened to.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he looked over at Roy and he was crying. He was tears coming out of his eyes. He said, that was awesome. And his daughter was there and his wife was there and they all gave him a big hug and said, this is the best. Thank you so much. And it was a hit.
Yeah,
That was a great song.
It's a really good song.
Yeah.
It's a very good track.
And the scary part about that was Roy wasn't much older than me when he did that song. But at the time, the guy looked like he was 1,000.
Yeah, he did look old. But he had that, he was either very young or old. There was no middle. Roy never had a middle ground.
Yeah, Roy was definitely, to me, in my eyes, grandfather material. Which I guess I am now, so.
I think Chris Isaacs will do the same because to me, Chris Isaacs bought the Roy Orbison how to dress and look, like right down to the Maltese cross. Like he's only going to be, well, that's young. Oh shit, he's old. Like it's only going to be one or the other.
Anyway, that's what I got. You got another one, Jay?
It'll be a little different though, because to me, again, Aerosmith became that group and has become that group that has followed me through life.
Mm.
I remember buying my first cassette tape because I had put a radio in my 1978 Dodge Aspen station wagon. And I was allowed the luxury of buying anything I wanted. And I ended up buying AC/DC Power Age. Mm. And I remember putting it in and cranking by hand the windows down. They weren't electric. And driving as the Marlboro Light burned in the breeze and blasting through my new Optimus speakers in the back, Sin City. And just feeling this sense of, ooh. And shortly thereafter, at least on the East Coast, I don't know, Howie, if you ever saw this, AC/DC had a live kind of what today would be or 20 years ago would be a DVD. And it was called For Those About to Rock.
Mm-hmm. I have. And
it wasn't the album that came out later. It was more of a live series of concerts with behind the scenes stuff. Mm-hmm. And they would put it into theaters, but they would put up scaffolding with speakers. So you could go to the theater to see the movie, but it would be loud as hell. And then Highway to Hell came out. And then Bond died, and then Back in Black came out. And I've noticed they're one of those groups that they're always in my peripheral, as I've gotten older, they keep throwing music at me. And I keep going, oh, I really like this. And I know a lot of people dislike AC/DC because it seems like they've done one album 30 times.
Sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And they have. But you know what? If I said this to someone today, if I go to McDonald's to get a burger and fries and a Coke, I can get that in Milwaukee, Atlantic City, San Diego, LA, Boston, wherever. It's consistent. And there's something about consistency that I think is
Applebee's, it's a step up from McDonald's.
Right. But
McDonald's.
But I kind of like that I know what I'm going to get.
Right. That's the Applebee's. Yeah.
Yeah. I know what I'm going to have when it shows up. And I sometimes think it's harder to be the same than it is to change. I think it's easy to change. You could simply get a PR person to go, you're going to wear pink, you're going to wear blue, you play this new guitar. I mean, literally, I saw it behind the scenes on their last tour for Black Ice. Angus Young is playing 3 guitars. That's what he has backstage. One of them is the old black and white custom that he played, actually recorded most of Back in Black with. That physical guitar is on tour. He took out the middle pickup. He painted over the pick guard. But that's one of the 3. The other one is a 69, and I think the other one is like a 75 or something. And he has literally no effects. His sound is based on how loud he plays off the guitar, and he has speakers in an ISO cab, and then he has 20 Marshall heads that get moved in and out of the set. Like, he's a guy that goes to work with a hammer, and he beats the crap out of something, and then he goes home. And then the next day, if the hammer breaks, he gets the exact same hammer, and he beats the crap out of something, and he goes home. And I always kind of like that. I mean, I used to like those bands, Free, Bad Company, Ted Nugent, bands that I knew exactly what I was going to get when they showed up.
The thing that AC/DC has going for them is their fan base.
Right.
I don't know that they could do wrong at this point. I mean, I don't know.
Can you think of another group that could sell out a stadium besides? Like, I don't think Guns N' Roses could sell a stadium today.
Well, no, not without. No, that's a mess right now.
I think AC/DC, if they said tomorrow, we're going to go on tour and our first show is at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, I think it would sell out.
Jeff Lynne will sell out.
The Foo Fighters sold out Madison Square
Yeah,
Garden.
the Foo Fighters.
No. Yeah, but I'm talking like 60,000 seats. I'm talking stadium-wise.
Chicago, and it was impossible to get tickets.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying that they're the only, but I think consistently the last 10 tours of AC/DC have been stadium because they don't want to play 5 nights in a city. They're like, can we get into San Diego and play at Petco Park? Can we get into LA and play at Dodger Stadium? Can we do the big shows?
Doing the whole Pink Floyd thing.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and they've been good friends to me over time. They've given me new pieces of music. But again, I go back to, I want to hear Girls Got Rhythm, and I want to hear, Night Stalker, and I want to hear Power Age, and I want to hear TNT. And, as a DJ, obviously I've played, Shook Me All Night Long a million times, Thunderstruck a ton of times. That's really it for the catalog that I've played out as a DJ. It's only 2 songs. Maybe Back in Black here and there.
Yeah, that one gets.
But it's 2 tracks. You're playing Thunderstruck.
Yeah, that
you're
one.
Playing,
right.
Shook Me All Night Long and calling it a day.
Right.
But they seem like an old friend or an old sweater or an old hoodie sometimes. Like,
they're comfortable.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. You mentioned Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd's a great group. And they're a great group that you can sit back like a good book and read. You can sit in your house and drop a needle on Dark Side of the Moon, close your eyes and have an experience. Yeah, I don't have an experience with AC/DC. AC/DC is working man's music.
Yeah, it is.
I got a lunchbox with some food in it, some work boots, some ripped jeans, and I'm going off to do something. I need some AC/DC.
Howie, how about you? What do you need?
What do I need? I really don't. I don't have any needs, but
how about a band you just like?
Oh, well, an artist. I am going to go. I'm going to go with Stevie Nicks.
Oh, nice.
Good call.
Well, because I remember it jogged my memory seeing that documentary. I remember buying the album Buckingham and Nicks.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
we're like, wow, like her voice is just so different. It just melted me. And I'm like, wow, she's amazing. And then, of course, next thing you know, they're in like the biggest band, for the mid 70s at the time touring,
What's funny? What's so funny about that, Howie? I mean, when you look at what happened, you got Buckingham Nicks. They're trying to do something. Bob Welch quits.
They got dropped by they had a great album and they got dropped by their label.
Well, they did the one with the monkey on it, or the
Yeah.
orangutan, with the Hypnotize, which I love that song. But then Bob Welch quits and he goes and wants to do a solo thing. And they're like, well, we need a guitar player. They get turned on to Lindsay.
Right.
And
he
Lindsay's
said,
like, it's a package deal or nothing.
package deal or nothing.
They don't want her.
And
They
then
do not want this chick.
Then they get in Fleetwood Mac and they break up.
Well, yeah, but what I was gonna say is the muse. If she wasn't writing the stuff, she was musing the stuff for them. I mean, she was mixed muse. She was, I mean, to write these things. She brought things out in people. She was a lot more special than they thought, and they didn't want her. And holy crap!
But real quick, as a guitar player, Peter Green was in Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah,
In the 60s.
sure.
Peter Green's legacy is not only being very influential and amazing, but he had a particular Les Paul that Gary Moore ended up with that then got sold and now Kirk Hammett of Metallica owns. And Kirk Hammett bought it for, I believe, a little over $1.5 million. Because it's called Greenie.
You're the real deal. You know who Gary Moore is.
Oh, God, yeah. They've had copies of this guitar made because it went out of phase, and it was this big thing with Peter Green. He sold it to Gary Moore for like £300 in the early 70s, which, in comparison to 40 years later being worth $2 million. So when I heard that in an interview about they needed a new guitarist, and they got Lindsey Buckingham, and I'm like,
well, they had Bob Welch. I mean, he was.
Yeah, but Bob Welch was another chord player. Bob Welch was like, dun, 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 dun. Like, he wasn't an amazing guitarist. Bob Welch would tell you, I'm not a great guitar player.
Well, he was singing.
In respects to Peter Green.
Well, no, but again, art. I'm not trying to be that guy.
Right.
No. I'm not doing it on that level. I'm saying,
well, he's no Peter Green. Well, of course he's not a Peter Green.
No, but when this is where you start. It's just it's an evolution of the band, is what I'm saying, Brian.
Right. No.
You used to be this amazing blues machine, and then you went. You look at the Yardbirds. They had 3 guitar players: Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, and Jeff Beck. Like, it doesn't get any better than that. With Fleetwood Mac, the transitions were so insane. The 60s Fleetwood Mac with Peter Green versus the Bob Welch versus the Lindsey Buckingham. Look at the growth to Rumors. If you said to me, here's, a Peter Green track, and 10 years later, here's something off Rumors, you'd never believe it's the same band.
That's like Ministry. It's just weird that way.
Like, exactly. That's actually a great example. Ministry going to NWO from before. You're like, this isn't the same group.
To, New World Order.
Or Stigmata or
Built
something.
My Hot Rod.
Or Jesus Built My Hot Rod. That,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
but no,
100%.
Stevie's done some great work with other artists. I'm thinking about, I think we all know about Tom Petty with Stop Dragging My Heart Around.
Yep.
Right.
What about Don Henley, Leather and Lace? Yeah.
But then there's weird stuff like that people don't even realize, like Walter Egan, Magnet and Steel. That's Stevie Nicks singing those background vocals.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's what's his name?
Oh, the one Gold.
John Stewart, Gold.
Gold, yes.
Now,
that was a big hit, like 78, 79.
For the viewers, tell them who Egan is.
Walter Egan?
Yeah.
The guy. I don't know. I don't know. He just
had a big hit, Magnet and Steel. It's on the Boogie Nights, which now, of course, is like 30 years old, but soundtrack.
I don't know what else Walter Egan did.
What did he do before Walter Egan?
I don't know.
Like Jay Ferguson, Thunder Island, before that was the lead singer of JoJo Gunn. The same way that Jerry Rafferty of Baker Street and Draw the Line was formerly the lead singer of Steelers Wheel.
Howie. Who was Walter Egan before he was Walter Egan?
Lou Reed. He was Lou Reed.
Yeah.
He was just a guy. I don't know. He was part of that California music scene.
Was he in a group before then? I didn't know where John Stewart came from either. Like, what was Jon Stewart's story? How did he end up getting Stevie Nicks to duet with him?
It was almost like they were people they partied with. It'd be like, hey, you want to sing with me? Sure. Hey, you want to sing with me? Sure.
But we're talking an era where you could get Hotel California and Jon Stewart and Stevie Nicks. It was like, okay, it all made sense back then.
Well,
because I don't think there were egos.
Old school Sunset Strip stuff, you know. I remember watching this video, and I don't know if I've ever shared it with you or not. I probably have at one point or another. It's Cal Jam 2. Which happened at... Actually, I was living like 3 miles from there at the time when it was happening. I probably heard it. I think my brother went.
And didn't realize it.
Yeah, I think my brother went to this, not knowing it was going to be this like epic thing, you know?
Yeah.
And the opening act at Cal Jam 2 is Bob Welsh, who does Ebony Eyes.
Yep.
And right before the first chorus, Stevie Nicks jumps on stage. And she's adorable. She's young Stevie Nicks. She's got the flower dress on. She's beating on a tambourine. Cute. She's dancing. Yeah. She's smiling. This is before she got into stuff. And she pushes the guitar player away from the mic and starts singing the song with Bob Welsh. And then before you know it, you see this guy to the side beating another tambourine with like a Gilligan hat on. It's Mick Fleetwood. He's there on stage just to be there. And they do the song together. And at the end, the person there interviewing Bob Welsh is like, hey, this is your new song. Hey, nice song. Hey, thank you. You know, I'm really excited about it. And the guy says, and I don't know where this was broadcast or what, Mick and Stevie are standing right there. And they ask him, how do you feel about leaving this band that is now the #1 band in the world? He's like, could we not talk about that? You know, like, I know I blew it, but come on, you know, pour salt.
You don't have to throw it in my face. I just opened Cal Jam.
It's very funny. And Stevie and Mick are just laughing. And it's like, look, you know, it's possible we could work again together someday. That's very possible. We're all friends.
Sadly, they didn't,
but no, it's interesting to see that kind of stuff.
Side note, Brian, do you remember the lineup of Cal Jam 2?
No, I don't.
I can give you most of the bands. Aerosmith was the headliner.
Hart was there.
Hart was there. Ted Nugent was there. Foreigner was there.
Yeah, wow.
Now, there was a band called Rubicon that was there as well. There was only like 6 or 7 bands. The reason I bring it up is because Rubicon had a guitar player by the name of Brad Gillis. Brad Gillis then started a band called Night Ranger. But while he was starting the band Night Ranger, when Randy Rhoads of Ozzy Osbourne's Blizzard of Oz tour got killed in 1982, he owed the label a live album and needed a guitarist. So for about a minute, he had a guy named Bernie Torme play guitar. And then Brad Gillis came in and replaced him, recorded Speak of the Devil, which is a Black Sabbath live cover. And then left because Ozzy said, this is great, let's continue. And Brad Gillis said, I'll be honest with you, you got this thing, Night Ranger, I'm really working on. I'm going to quit and go to them. And then Jakey Lee came in.
Yeah, I remember Jakey.
But it's that, when you look at the lineup, it's like Aerosmith, Ted Nugent, Foreigner, Hart, Bob Welch, Rubicon. Oh, shit, that's Brad Gillis's first band. So I'm just saying, like, everything from there kind of went somewhere else. The very first Cal Jam, by the way, it was headlined by...
Yeah, that was a couple years before that.
Famously
like
Deep
Sabbath
Purple.
Was it Deep Purple?
Deep Purple. And Richie Blackmore was really pissed, ready to leave the band. So he had his tech put extra explosives in his amp and blew it up on stage and literally had the show shut down because the explosion was
I remember seeing the lineups, and it was a very different Cal Jam. That one was pretty dark.
It was like Uriah Heep and Deep Purple, and
sounded like fun. It just sounded like a fun time.
2 was like the night before you go see Peter Frampton kind of thing. You know, well, I mean, Foreigner, like like that early Foreigner too. Yeah,
Stevie Nicks, man. I'm a fan. I named my daughter after Stevie.
I really lit the candle here, huh?
Well, you know what? The Stevie Nicks, and I tell you, if you don't get a shiver, you're not watching it correctly on the, Sound City documentary with she just sits there and you can see her look at the board and she just looks back on her life. I believe she actually reads a letter that she wrote to her family about where she was recording at Sound City, saying, we're in the recording studio. It's going really well. I'm really excited. I can't wait to see you. I love you and I miss you, kind of thing. And she reads this and you can tell it's her life because that board, even though it's moved, it's still the same board.
Isn't that where she recorded
Stand Back? And she's 20 years old when she wrote that letter.
Exactly. Yeah, she was very young.
Did she Did she record Stand Back there too?
I think she did. I mean, the list of albums recorded out of Sound City are like from Rat to everything. Like literally everything in the 80s that was a hit seemed to come out of Sound City. And one of the big ones was Rick Springfield.
Do you? Well, you guys know the Stand Back story, don't you? With Stevie Nicks.
I don't.
Oh, check this out. This is fun. So Stevie Nicks marries husband number 3 or whatever it was, and they get married. I think it was like in San Diego, or maybe it was.
It was San Diego, Brian. And to be honest with you, if we could skip over the husband number 3 thing, because it's still sort of sensitive to me. But I remember my first wife, Morgan Fairchild, when I left her for Stevie Nicks. I don't want to.
So
it's okay, I'm back.
So they're driving through the desert, and they're just coming into LA, and she hears a song on the radio called Little Red Corvette, and she loses her shit. She's like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." So they pull over and they buy the album 1999, like the tape. You know, they're in a vet, and she's listening to it. This is supposed to be her honeymoon, and she just keeps rewinding the song and listening to it over and over again. And she starts writing stuff down on a napkin, and she's writing new lyrics to it. And she writes "Stand Back" to the tune of Little Red Corvette, because it's the same song. If you listen to them, they're exactly the same. So she goes into the studio shortly after that, and I think it's Sound City, and she's trying to finish the song, and she can't do it. She doesn't know what to do. So she calls her manager guy or whatever and says, "Boy, I'm working on this tune. I just cannot finish this song." Says, "Well, you ought to talk to Prince." It's like, "Well, how do you just call Prince?" Like, "I would. Here's his number. I got his number." So she calls Prince, and he answers the phone. Says, "Hello, this is Prince." Oh no, answer the hello. Say, "This is Stevie Nicks." He said, "Hello, this is Prince." It's like, "Okay, here's what I'm doing. I'm totally ripping your song off, but I'm stuck and I don't know what to do here. Now, I won't do it. If you want me to do it, I'll scrap it. I'll stop doing it." He's like, "Well, where are you?" And she tells him, and he says, "I'll be there in 30 minutes. I'm in town." So he shows up in full garb, like dressed like Prince, everything.
Yeah.
Lays down all the keyboard on that track. That's him. He writes down on the fly. They record the track, and he bugs out. And that's the last time she ever saw him.
Wow.
And if you look at the publishing, the ASCAP publishing on the song "Stand Back," Prince.
Wow.
Part of his catalog.
Wow. That's awesome.
That is.
It's like that Jimmy Fallon friggin' ping pong thing at Susan Sarandon's ping pong hall in New York.
I've talked
Quest Love runs up. What happened? Window comes down. Ask you, bro.
I mean, I always loved the song "Stand Back." And I do like Stevie Nicks, but I really like that song, and I couldn't figure out why. Well, that's why.
Yeah.
I can hear it.
She traveled with an insane posse of guys, too, like Waddy Wachell on guitar. And
had the same background singers for 40 years.
Right, but she took the studio team that was like Andrew Gold and like all those guys at that period. All those musicians were Stevie's guys.
Andrew Gold was in her band?
No, Andrew Gold was a writer and then got an album deal, but got like Waddy Wachell is this guitar player who has been with Keith Richards. Like if you saw the picture of him, you'd be like, "Oh my God, he's been with everyone." And there's another guy with a super long white beard. They call him Father Time. Glasses, long hair. They both played with James Taylor and then everyone else. And he was famously the guitarist that came up with that like intro to One Winged Dove.
Edge of 17.
It's Edge 17. Yeah, because he's like, she's like, I need something in the beginning. He's like, well, what about this? It's like, which ended up becoming sampled with like Destiny's Child and everyone else. But
that's one of those songs that you hear the first 3 notes, you know what song it is,
right?
And it's gold. If you can catch him in 3 notes, come on, you got.
Well, and it's funny because he's like, he was at a 7-Eleven and he had no money on him. He needed cigarettes, and he's like, oh damn, I only have like 10 cents or whatever. And they're playing Andrew Gold, Lonely Boy, and he's like, I wanted so bad to say, dude, please give me a pack of cigarettes. This is me on guitar. Like that's my solo. Like I swear.
Oh, this is kind of like exposure tickets.
Yeah,
you get
exactly. Like,
Can you know,
or the wimpy concept. You know, I would gladly pay you for a burger on Tuesday.
No, I'd gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger.
For a hamburger today. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of, you know, and this is the beauty of it. And I don't know why this comes to mind, but it does. There's a great video, and I suggest if you haven't seen it, that anyone that sees this, please go look at this, of Steve Winwood doing Can't Find My Way Home, acoustically in a winter coat in like a little hut by a fireplace, and it's him and the guitar. And you have to stop and realize he sounds better than the recording that was done 40 years prior. There's that. That was what music was. And it's the music that the three of us have talked about tonight. It's give me a guitar or a piano and I'll do it. There was no Pro Tools. There was no, let me get a sample. Let me see how many times I can rhyme the word F-U-C-K with something. It was
here he goes. See, it's perfect time to just cut him off.
I'm saying, you know what I'm saying.
I didn't get to do a third artist.
We are at the time. So
you can do a third artist.
You have the
right.
We could talk about my third artist for 2 minutes.
Sure, why not?
David Bowie.
What's the worst that can happen, Hellfire?
David Bowie. You got 2 minutes to riff on Bowie. Come on.
I got 2 days worth of stuff on Bowie.
Well, so do I.
Yeah.
You talk about a guy who reinvents himself like all the time. Like every album is different. And that's what was interesting about him. Not only was his music different, but his persona was different for a long time. And he's greatly missed. Missed. Bowie was a consistent in my, we talk about this. I don't like to do the old days thing, but my entire life, Bowie was a consistent thing in my life up until he passed.
What I thought was odd was when he was interviewed, he said he doesn't consider himself a musician. He considers himself an actor,
an artist.
And because he played different parts. And it's so true, because he was Ziggy Stardust for a while. And then,
he considered himself a performance artist.
Yeah.
And you know what? He did a good job at what he did.
Well, he did, though. I mean, he
was real. He reached, Peter Frampton toured with him when Peter Frampton wasn't doing well. And they went to school together and knew each other, but he realized, oh, here's someone I'll bring in with me. Let's face facts here, guys. The reason Stevie Ray Vaughan got the break he got was because Stevie Ray Vaughan played on,
It didn't hurt. The Let's Dance solo didn't hurt.
Not at all. Or even his version, which was entirely different. And I love both. And I can't tell you which I like better. Cat People. There's 2 versions. There's the dark, slow version from the movie, and then there's the modern love version, which is Stevie Ray Vaughan doing that dun 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 dun. Totally different. And Bowie's look, you knew when Bowie came on stage 5 years from now, that's what my hair will look like. That's how I'll dress.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Bowie was always...
No, Bowie, he became that way. I think he was kind of just... trying things throughout the 70s.
But how insane is that he could come up with stuff that would eventually catch on?
Once
and he had the balls to do it.
Like David Bowie was the trendsetter.
Yeah,
a real solid
100%.
I don't believe he was the first guy to do glam. No, but he did.
Yeah, but he wasn't schlocky.
He made it something else.
He wasn't like Twisted Sister with the with the lipstick. I mean, he was like, whoa, like he had a fashion sense that transcended glam rock, I think.
They were going for shock. He was going for legitimacy. Like,
Yeah.
Slade is doing this thing over here, and I think I can make it better.
My son has a 66 Thunderbird now, and we're calling it Christine because it's fixing itself. Like,
Right.
you take it out and you drive
That works
it.
for me.
Well, that runs better than it did. It's got a 428 and it's a cool car. Bowie was kind of like the Christine of rock and roll because he looked better. Bowie looked better in 2000 than he looked in 1970.
That's
He got
true.
his teeth fixed. He gained some weight. He aged very well.
Oh,
Yeah.
very handsome.
Just
and he
like
had the
us.
two different
He used to
color
be very
eyes.
handsome. You wouldn't say that about Bowie in 1970, but you'd say it about Bowie in 2000.
But that was my point. Like, you look at him at Live Aid and then look at him 5 years later and you look at the two looks and they're like night and day.
Right.
Like, wait a second. How did he know we'd be wearing these cool jackets with
Right.
vests
Right.
Yeah.
6 years ago? Like, how did he pick up on? I've said this to many people, Brian. I think you'll appreciate it as you will, Howie, and everyone else. I remember playing Heroes for people and saying, can you please guess, like new DJs that I would be training, can you please guess when this song came out? And with nothing but consistency, I would get last year, 2 years ago, 4 years ago. I'm like, no, actually, this song came out 30 years ago, 35 years ago. Because I think he was so ahead of what he was doing.
Yeah.
His early 70s music today. I mean, really, play Fame.
Yeah.
Play Fashion. Play,
Well, I mean,
these things are so timeless. And I think
Fashion's
that
dated.
speaks to his immense talent.
Fashion's very dated, but I agree with the Young Americans album.
What about Lodger album? It's still my favorite album by him. Lodger,
No, it's a
with
great album, but
DJ.
it screams 1980. I mean, there's, but the earlier
okay, then
stuff
go
is-
way back. Go to Aladdin. Go
it's
to
a little
you
more
know.
timeless, I think.
I don't think Hero sounds like 70s. I think Hero sounds like it could have been done 5 weeks ago.
Heroes isn't as bad, but I'm thinking like Fashion and DJ and things like that.
And I'll give you that they're 80s, and I'll give you they're a little pigeonholed, but I think it's still what he could do before then. It still amazes me to hear these songs and how fresh they sound.
Mm-hmm.
And
The
that's
80s
difficult. That's not easy to do.
But the other 80s stuff he did, I think, aged incredibly well. The Let's Dance album and even the Tonight album, which doesn't get a lot of love. I really like that album.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Loving an Alien? I think that
but-
song.
Yeah, Blue Jean
Timeless.
is my jam on there. That and
Blue Jean?
Tonight.
That's a
Blue
good
Jean,
song.
Tonight's on there.
Was Iggy Pop involved in that? I know he wrote China Girl.
That was
Was
the
he
Let's
involved
Dance
with Blue
album.
Jean?
That was the Let's Dance album.
No, I know, but
I
I'm
don't know
saying
that Iggy
writing
was- no,
wise.
I don't know. Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
But we've gone over by looks like 2 minutes.
Oh,
We're gonna get fired for sure.
sorry.
So.
Well, I mean, we could do this from now till hell freezes over because there's more great music I will never get to hear in my lifetime
That's a good album too.
than I have.
Well, hell froze over.
You want to go down the Eagles route? We can go down that route one night.
No,
We can go
because
down.
you're gonna say the Eagles 50 times, and it's gonna
Yes, I am, sir. Just like I have to take the 15 freeway when I get out of here.
All right, guys.
It's a Cali thing, dude. I'm sorry. I drank the Kool-Aid.
If Keanu Reeves didn't get us fired this week, then we did all right.
Keep one fist in the gold, one foot in the gutter.
See you next time.